Hey everyone, I'm Cedric, and today we're going to be doing some deadwooding on this elm tree right here. First things first, we want to be able to identify the deadwood in the tree. So there's 3 ways of doing that. It gets really easy when the tree has a lot of leaves because the deadwood has no leaves, so it's very obvious. Second way, it's a little tougher in the winter time when there's no leaves at all and they all almost look dead. But a good way to identify them is if there's any kind of fungus or mushrooms on the limbs, which would indicate that it is dying. And the third way is looking to see if there's any buds on the tips of the limbs. And if there's none at all on a branch, that usually means it's dead or dying and it needs to be taken out. Here's a couple examples of deadwood. Right here we have a piece of wood that normally don't have buds or leaves because it's not the end, but it just shows the bark peeling off. It's kind of dry. It just looks dead and decayed. And then here we have a branch that would normally have buds or leaves, but doesn't have anything. It also just kind of cracks off. Normally if it's live, it'll like peel off or just be stringy and kind of give you a hard time. So these are good signs that the pieces of wood are dead. We've already completed a gear inspection and we inspected the tree and we've determined that it's safe to climb and my gear is in good condition. Now the next step is to create a work plan. So first things first, like we talked about, we're gonna identify the deadwood in the tree and what needs to come out. And so just for a demo's sake, I'm only selecting a few limbs to give you a feel of what it's like to be in the tree. So I've determined we need to cut off a limb on this side, on the right side of the elm, and one on the left side. So then, once you've done that, you can decide where your tie-in point needs to be, which is important. So we're going to decide the tie-in point needs to be up high to where I can get to the right side of the tree. And then we're going to retie our tie-in point so we can get to the left side. And because of that, we're gonna use DRT, which is part of the work plan. You need to decide which technique, which climbing system you're gonna use. Basically DRT or SRT. And because this is a smaller, widespread canopy, we're gonna use DRT. We also don't have to ascend that high. So DRT is gonna be our system that we use. And now that we've determined our work plan, we're gonna go ahead and use a throw ball and set up our tie-in point. Ta-da! All right, that's finally over. So I'm gonna feed the climb line into the throw ball because we hit the crotch. It was like, what, first shot, I think? It's really easy, you know? It's not a thick crotch at all, so I'm just gonna put it right on the throw ball. Coming to the other side over here, feeding it through. Oh God, it looks interesting. All right, we're gonna put the throw ball to the side because we're finished with it. Then I'm gonna put on my saddle. And like I said, we're gonna be climbing DRT because it's not a long ascent and because we're gonna need to change our tie-in point. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the DRT system. All right, there we go. Now I'm not gonna be using the Michiko hitch for this one. I'm used to this other hitch that I've been using for a little bit, so we're just gonna use that one. Now we're gonna start our ascent up into the elm tree. After I put on my gloves, I'm not gonna use a foot ascender because I'm kind of close to the trunk of the tree, and it's a little bit too wide to use a lanyard around it. So I'm just gonna go up hip thrusting and kind of just walk up the trunk. So I'm just doing a couple hip thrusts, and then I'm kind of taking out the slack. Now the dead limb we're going to be cutting off is right over there. You can tell it has no buds on it. The bark is kind of cracked a little bit. It's kind of breaking. That's another sign that the limb is dying. So it's also a good technique whenever you need to climb out a little bit on the limb, just grabbing both of your ropes with one hand and then with the other one kind of using it to help you balance. Okay. Now I need to find a good spot for my lanyard to tie in with, because I am going to be using a handsaw. So this limb is going to give, it's strong enough to hold my weight, and it's also going to give me a good position to where I can get to the limb and cut it with the handsaw. There'll be so many times when you think you have a good limb for your positioning lanyard, and then once you get to the actual spot, you can either find a better one or it's just not as good as you thought of, and that's okay, because you can just retie your positioning lanyard. I also need to have my positioning lanyard tied in because I'm going to be using my handsaw, which means I'm cutting, and I always need 2 points of contact. So with this limb, it's a little thicker, so we're going to be doing the 3-cut method, where we cut on the bottom and then we cut on the top away from the collar. And our 3rd cut will be cutting the stub off. So, headache. Doesn't have to be, the point of the undercut is just to make sure the bark doesn't peel. As you can tell, this limb is quite dead right now. And then the 3rd and final cut. Okay, now we cut the first of our deadwood. Now we need to jump over on that side of the tree and grab some deadwood there. Okay, I'm gonna untie my lanyard. And it's a good habit for you, whenever you have your lanyard, to not just throw it, but to hook it back on your D-ring, on your bridge. Now, my tie-in point will allow me to get to that point over there, but then once I get over there, I'm actually gonna re-tie in, so I don't have to swing back to the trunk and I can just come right down. So I'm gonna show you exactly what that means. It's a little twist up there, so I'm just gonna do a 360, which will, there we go. Sometimes you gotta come a lot lower down just to get to the limb, and then you can get right back up in it. I'm also a little bit further away from my tie-in point. So the positioning lanyard, you just use it whenever you need some kind of help to get up or a better position. So we're gonna use this to kind of help us get into this kind of spot that's a little tight. Once I can basically get to that limb, my feet on it, we'll be okay. It was a little bit of a hard climb out to point, but once you get here, you'll be okay because you just have your lanyard keep you secure. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my tie-in point right there so we can have a good, comfortable position. So you don't want to just take off your carabiner. You always want to untie it from the carabiner because with the carabiner, it's a very good chance it'll get stuck in the crotch. So we'll untie it completely. Then we can just pull the other end, take out the slack while we're doing it. Okay, I'm gonna pull a lot of the slack through. Now, there's actually a small dead stub I want to get up there, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw my rope out pretty high over there. So what we're gonna do is gonna make a monkey fist, a ball of rope. That way it gives us some weight that we can just throw the actual line with. Right into wherever we need our tie-in point to. So I'm gonna go in this crotch right up here. Now there'll be a lot of times where you can't reach your rope, and that's when having a handsaw grab it for you is extremely useful. If it's really far out and your handsaw can't reach, sometimes you'll have to have somebody send a pole saw up, or if you can get your hands on a long branch with some kind of hook on it, that'll also do. Anything you can do to get back that rope once you've thrown it over the crotch. Okay, so we just need to tie it back on our carabiner, and then we're gonna test out the rope, the crotch, and the carabiner, the system we just tied before we take off our lanyard. Okay. So it's back, it's tied back on us. And before I take off this lanyard, I'm gonna make sure the system is going to hold me. So I'm gonna put a lot of weight on it. I'm gonna test it. Okay, now it's safe for us to take off the lanyard because we know it'll hold us. I'm just gonna go ahead and put my lanyard in a good spot to help me get a better position because I need to go right out there and get that dead wood on this limb. So we're gonna put our lanyard in this crotch right here. Now, from this position, it's basically just loosening both my position lanyard and my rope until I basically get to the limb. And I'm kind of comfortable in the meantime. Okay, so we've gotten to the limb. We're gonna go ahead and pull out our handsaw. Headache. We're gonna 3-cut method again. Just a little bit on the bottom, over on top, and then our last cut will be for the branch collar. All And we're just gonna climb up just a little more and get a little piece of stub that I wanna grab. Okay. So I'm gonna take off my positioning lanyard because I don't need it right now to ascend further up. So we're gonna clip it right back on our D-ring and we're just gonna climb up the tree. If you'll notice, like after each step I take or after each pull, I'll tighten up the slack because I don't ever want to get it too much slack, because if something goes wrong and you fall and there's a lot of slack in your rope, then you're gonna fall like 8 feet or 9 feet, as opposed to like, I only ever keep it to like maybe 1 or 2 feet. Now, I'm actually gonna retie my rope again just one more time. And before I take off the rope completely, I'm gonna loosen a lot and make sure my lanyard can hold me. Then we can go ahead and untie or just take off our carabiner. Now, it's like this situation will be fine to leave the carabiner on because I'm right here and I can't get stuck because I can reach it. I'm just gonna go ahead, tie it around our crotch is a little higher up. It's gonna give me a better positioning, because so much about pruning is positioning. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this stub right here. We have double tie-in. Headache! And I can go ahead and just do a single because it's small. I'm not gonna do a triple cut. And now our job here is complete. So, gonna make sure my climbing line is gonna hold me before I take off my lanyard. So we're gonna test it out. It was good. And now we start the ascent down the tree. Now I'm just gonna go just straight down because I run the risk if I go down the trunk of the tree, then I can swing out further that way if I lose my footing. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna kind of get my rope here. Now I'm just gonna ascend down. This way it'll be a lot easier. Now the job is completed, and that's how we deadwood an elm tree. It's important that you accurately identify the deadwood in the tree by following what we mentioned earlier about the mushrooms having no leaves or having no buds, or if the bark is cracked off and decayed. It also leads into making a work plan, because if you can accurately identify all the deadwood, then you know exactly where you need to be in the tree. And by making an efficient work plan, it's gonna save everyone time and energy. So signing out, I'm Cedric, and I'll see you in the canopy.